great I am. I'm gonna float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I am the king of the world.
G5 Jeff TV, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Please share this video, support your boy. Support good content at all times. Let's get right down to business. Newly crowned 147-pound champion of the world, Showtime Shawn Porter, was not given any favors by the WBC at their convention. WBC decided that Shawn Porter should have 2 mandatories. 2. First mandatory is going to be Keith one-time Thurman. Second mandatory is going to be Berto. Now, for some reason, the WBC has been wanting for their welterweight champion to fight 2 mandatories for a long period of time. When Keith Thurman was the WBC champion, they wanted for Keith Thurman to fight 2 mandatories. And Keith Thurman ended up dropping the belt. And I thought at the time that Keith Thurman might have been strategic by dropping the belt because he didn't want to fight 2 mandatories. They basically gave him a status that once he's back in action, then he can get a WBC title shot. So I'm thinking, okay, well, Keith Thurman dropped the belt just so he can recover, and when he comes back, he get an instant title shot. If he wins the title, then he's not obligated to fight 2 mandatories. That was my thought process. But the WBC has continued this 2 mandatory thing, and they told Shawn Porter that he has to fight 2 mandatories. Number one, I don't understand why WBC's welterweight champion has to fight 2 mandatories and not all of their champions having to fight 2 mandatories. Off the top of my head, number 1, Canelo Alvarez. Number 2, Adonis Stevenson. Adonis Stevenson hasn't fought a mandatory since Tony Bellew. Elidio Alvarez has been Adonis Stevenson's mandatory for years. He's been paid step-aside money 3 different times. Nobody's told Adonis Stevenson he had 2 mandatories. Nobody's forced him to face 1 mandatory. Canelo Alvarez, he has a voluntary. He was given an opportunity to have a voluntary. He's taking advantage of that by fighting Rocky Fielding for a 168-pound title, which is under another sanctioning body. But for some reason, the welterweight champion for the WBC has to fight 2 mandatories. That's not within their rules, number 1. And number 2, obviously they changed their rules to give the welterweight champion 2 mandatories, but the only reason they're supposed to change their rules is to benefit the sport of boxing. Shawn Porter fighting a guy that's been out for 19 months and fighting another guy that's 5-5 in his last 10 fights is not benefiting the sport of boxing. When these sanctioning bodies do this type of bullshit, we got to call them out on it. Like, because these sanctioning bodies is the reason why boxing is not ahead of, like, the UFC. This is why boxing is not embraced in the U.S. like it should. Because of bullshit like this. Imagine trying to explain this to a casual fan that wants to convert into a hardcore fan. Imagine trying to explain this to them. They're going to be like, this don't make no fucking sense. I ain't got time. Keith Thurman has not been active. Keith Thurman just dropped this same WBC belt. And he gets an automatic shot. Makes no sense. And from Keith Thurman's end, it makes Keith Thurman look like a hypocrite if he goes right into a Shawn Porter title fight without a tune-up. Because the main reason he told Earl Spence that he wouldn't fight him is because he was coming off an injury and he needed at least 2 tune-ups. Stop me if I'm lying. Now let's go to Berto. Andre Berto was 5-5 in his last 10 fights. I am an Andre Berto fan. I am a Keith Thurman fan, but it's not me bashing them. This is me bringing the facts out. Andre Berto is 5-5 in his last 10 fights. When in boxing history does 5-5 in your last 10 fights get you the second mandatory shot? Not the first. You get to kick your feet up and wait for two other guys to fight, and you're the second mandatory. When did that become acceptable? Huh? When? And then to cap it off, Andre Berto lost to Shawn Porter, got mauled in that fight. Lost by TKO. And then in Andre Berto's last fight against Devin Alexander, he got a decision that probably 8 out of 10 people will tell you he didn't deserve. People thought Devin Alexander won that fight. And these are the two people that the WBC granted as mandatories for Shawn Porter? I don't understand it. And then, I got more for you. And then, Yordenis Ugas, he just fought on the Danny Garcia Shawn Porter undercard. That was a WBC title eliminator for a mandatory shot. Yordenis Ugas won that fight, so he was supposed to get a mandatory shot, and he didn't get it. He didn't get it because they wanted to give it to a guy that was 5-5 in his last 10 fights and a guy that hasn't fought in 19 months. The WBC in their rule book strictly says we will change and amend the rules if the WBC president and the board feels like it benefits the sport of boxing. They are changing their own rules, and none of this is to benefit the sport of boxing. But let me tell you where Shawn Porter and Kenny Porter is full of shit. Kenny Porter, and I'm a fan of Kenny Porter. I'm just bringing the facts out. I'm a fan of Shawn Porter. Just bringing the facts out. Kenny Porter said, I don't want my son to fight for the WBC belt. That's what he said. He said because when Kenny Porter and Shawn Porter lost the belt, the IBF championship to Kell Brook in their first title defense, that the IBF completely dropped them out of the rankings and they never got an explanation why. In my eyes, that is bullshit. And I'm going to tell you why. Shawn Porter had an interview back in the day. Reporter asked him, why are you not going after Earl Spence in the IBF belt? Shawn Porter said in the interview that he didn't know why the IBF didn't have him ranked. And he didn't know why the IBF wouldn't give him an opportunity against Earl Spence. You know what I did as G5 Jeff TV, and this is when I first started. I took Shawn Porter at his word. I was just like, well, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't know. Shawn Porter seemed like a stand-up guy. Kenny Porter seemed like a stand-up guy. I don't see why they would lie about that. I emailed the IBF. Went to their website, found their email address, and I emailed the IBF. And I asked them, why is Shawn Porter not ranked with the IBF? The IBF responded the next day. They responded the next day. They said that Shawn Porter fought 2 WBC title eliminators, and that was the reason why he wasn't ranked with the IBF. When I got the answer from the IBF, I DM'd Shawn Porter on Instagram and told him why the IBF did not have him ranked. Whether he read my DM or not doesn't matter. I still have the DM from me sending that information to Shawn Porter. If I am an absolute nobody, just a YouTube channel. I told the IBF I'm a brand new YouTube channel that covers boxing, and I wanted to get the information because I felt like the fans didn't know. And they responded to me within 24 hours, and I still have the emails. You think Shawn Porter and Kenny Porter couldn't get on the phone and get their answer from them guys? See, this is why I don't believe a lot of these fighters and a lot of these managers and things like that. I don't believe them. Because of shit like that. Like G5 Jeff TV is able to get information from the IBF, but Shawn Porter and Kenny Porter can't. Come the fuck on, man. Like, come on. Come on. Stop it. Stop it. Like, if I ever met Kenny Porter and Shawn Porter, that's exactly what I would tell them. That's exactly what I would tell them. That's why I don't even want to interview these dudes. I don't want to interview these boxers. I don't want to interview these promoters, these managers, because they give you nothing but bullshit. They give you nothing but bullshit in these interviews. And I'm a fan of a lot of these guys, man. I'm cool with just taking a picture with them, and calling it a day. But as far as information, I know they're going to give me some bullshit. That's just the name of the game. So that's where Shawn Porter and Kenny Porter is full of shit. They can say the IBF ain't shit for taking them out of the rankings. But then they break their backs for the WBC, and then the WBC turn around and get them 2 title eliminators before he got the title shot. And then they turn around and give him 2 mandatories after he wins the belt. And he's getting treated worse than any other WBC champion out there. All of this is facts. All of this is facts. WBC ain't treat Floyd Mayweather like this. They ain't treated Adonis Stevenson like this. They not treating Canelo Alvarez like this. They ain't treating Jermell Charlo like this. Not Jamal, but Jermell Charlo like this, because he's an actual champion at 154 pounds. Where in the rule book is this acceptable with the WBC? These rule changes is not benefiting the sport of boxing. At the end of the day, it's just not. So going forward, I don't know if Shawn Porter is going to fight both of these mandatories. And let's just say he fights both of these mandatories. Like I said, if Keith Thurman fights this mandatory and it's his first fight back, then he's a complete hypocrite, because he told Errol Spence that he needed 2 tune-up fights before he get in the ring with him. If he fights Andre Berto, it's a damn shame, because he just beat Andre Berto, and Andre Berto is 5-5 in his last 10 fights. WBC is a bunch of bullshit, because Yordenis Ugas should be at least one of these mandatories, and he's not. And the sanctioning bodies doesn't have uniform rules, because the IBF won't rank a guy if he fights 2 WBC mandatories like Shawn Porter. But if you check the IBF rankings, Yordenis Ugas is still ranked number 2 with the IBF, even though he's supposed to have a mandatory shot with the WBC. Tell me where that makes sense. And then on top of that, with the WBC making Keith Thurman a mandatory, the first mandatory, then they are approving unification, because Keith Thurman is a WBA champion, which means the WBC should have allowed a voluntary for Shawn Porter, just like they did Canelo Alvarez. So Shawn Porter could have had an option of going over to the IBF and making a unification fight with Errol Spence Jr. Listen, man, I done put so many facts out there, man. I'm tired of talking. Man. Like, why trust the WBC when you got this type of bullshit? And then they'll get mad when you call them out on this bullshit. So I'm not expecting any favors from the WBC going forward, and I'm not looking for any. At the end of the day, my job is to bring y'all the facts, bring y'all interesting content, and that's exactly what I'm doing over here on G5 Jeff TV. Now, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section. G5 Jeff TV, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Please share this video. Support your boy. Support good content at all times. I appreciate y'all. Peace.